Good day, good Wednesday. It is March 16th, 2022. Can you believe that? We are just about to the end of the first quarter of 2022. Doesn't make any sense to me. Today is my brother's birthday. As many of you know, my birthday was on Monday, my 60th birthday. Today is my brother's 70th birthday. And he's just sassy as ever. So, you know, um, I always look ahead and I go, oh, that age isn't so bad. My brother is always there leading the way and pointing me in the right direction. Um, Good day, everyone. I hope that this day finds you well. I feel like it's been so long since I have spoken with you. And really, I want to say, has it been like 3 weeks? I think it's been 3 weeks, maybe four. And that is a long time when I'm accustomed to us hanging out every week. Um, so as most of you know, I spent the last few weeks in bed with COVID. It finally caught me. Um, over the last couple of years, I have been traveling. I haven't really stopped my life, and in large part that's due to the fact that, the kind of life that we live as voice actors, right? Like, we work from home for the most part, and during COVID, those voiceover areas that didn't customarily work from home were now scrambling to try to work from home and with their voice talent. And so we really ended up just being so fortunate, given the manner in which most people have suffered through this pandemic. Um, but all that is to say, and I homeschool my daughter, so that wasn't really an issue of sort of having to readjust to that. We were already acclimated to that. But nonetheless, while, always following the rules, that were set out for us, particularly in California, uh, I still managed to, I traveled every month, at least. I was on a plane at least once a month over the entire course of COVID. And so I, and of course, air on planes is probably the most high quality air because it is run through filters, and every 3 minutes the entire cabin is circulated with fresh air. So anyway, all that is to say, it finally got me. And I think that it got me actually on a trip that I took to meet a friend in South Carolina. So somewhere in there. And I have to say, I was so tired and exhausted by that trip that it doesn't surprise me because I was pretty run down. And again, over the course of COVID, I really kept my health up and maintained exercise and eating well and all that good stuff. But I was really tired on that trip to South Carolina, so I think that's when it got me. Anyway, I don't want to belabor my experience with COVID, except that it does sort of relate to what I want to talk with you about today, which is what to do when you don't have work. And it's going to seem a little counterintuitive, but I think that I've managed to connect this. Um, uh, but I spent the first few days, I had a terrible, terrible sore throat, and it was sort of all in my head, stuffy sinuses, and so I had a terrible sore throat and a migraine, like 3 solid days of a migraine and a sore throat that was like really hard to swallow, and then I got some medications from my doctor, steroids and azithromycin, and because normally if something's in my head, invariably it turns into a sinus infection. So we headed that off at the pass, which was awesome. And then like day 4 or 5, I was like, wow, I'm better. This is like take that COVID, like like it wasn't gonna get me, too severely. And then I just got flattened by it with this very dull, uh, pestiferous headache, and nausea, low grade nausea for 2 weeks, which I lost 8 pounds. It was effective, but I don't recommend it. I just couldn't eat, and it was difficult to try to keep fluids in me and blah, 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 blah. It was just really, really, check out that word. It's such a great word. It sounds exactly like it is pestiferous. It's like a pest. And it was just super, super irritating. Anyway, somewhere along in there, it was, guys, it was last Friday. I thought to myself, "Okay, Bess, I bet you are really, really dehydrated." And so I found one of these newfangled places. They're all over California, and evidently they're all over Franklin, Tennessee as well. There's a place where you can go to get fluids, like IV fluids. So I did. I made an appointment. I got IV fluids and electrolytes. I got high dose vitamin C, zinc, B12, and I also got Zofran, which is an anti-nausea drug. So I got that intravenously. Um, and all these places run by a doctor, and it was a nurse attending to me and all that. But that day, like, I didn't feel better that day, but the next day, I was like, all right, I'm back, baby. And so that was really, really helpful. And I think I'm going to go back this week because nausea came back to me a little bit yesterday. But by and large, I would say I'm like 85, 90%, which is awesome. Um, and so before I dive into this and connect with what the topic at hand is, I just want to see who's here. Oh, look, fantastic. Hi, John and Yvonne and Rory and Christy. Um, Thank you so much for joining me here. I really, really appreciate it. It's nice to see all your names. Um, so one of the things that happened, um, I guess it was last week. Last week was I was inundated with work. Inundated, like more work in 1 week than I've probably had, you know, in 2 years, right? Like, and I was um, not happy because I felt so awful, and I had, you know, I had sessions, like on the line with people. Oh, my dog is crying. That's not good. I'm going to text my daughter and ask her to come take my dog for a walk. Hang on one moment. um, uh, sorry. How unprofessional of me. Okay, there we go. Um, so, like, I had to be on the line, right? I got promo work, like promos for Paramount Plus and promos for um, Adult Swim, and then I got a call back for a video game where I had to be on the line, with the producer and the director and the writer, and I had to be on camera, and and then the next day I had two back-to-back sessions, 3 hours each. Like, I couldn't handle it. I felt so sick. It's like, in between those two sessions, it's like I would just lie down with a cold pack over my face, and then I would get back up. And then through all of it, all of a sudden, I mean, it's a big news cycle right now. And so my affiliates were just pounding me with stuff where it was like pages of things to read. And doing news cycle stuff is like intense. And I say this honestly. I say this not to brag, because this is how it is for us, right? We get bursts of work, and then we don't get work. And that is the cycle. And so then on Friday, I booked another thing, and I thought I was all done with my affiliate work. And then at the end of the day on Friday, I got another wave of it. And I actually, when I got it, I was lying down. And when I got it, I looked at my email and I just started to cry. Like, and and yet, I sent an email and I said, when do you need this? And they were like, you can do it over the weekend. We just need it Monday morning. And I was like, thank God, because I had no energy. And in this one session on Friday, it was a 2 hour session. They were done with me in 25 minutes, but they kept me on the call for 2 hours. And I just sat, at a certain point, I just sat on the floor of my booth, my closet, and I just leaned up against the wall and closed my eyes just to try to catch my breath and not barf. So, why am I saying all that to you? Again, it's because of the cyclical nature of the work and the imperative of being happy right where you are, whether there's a lot of work on your doorstep or whether there isn't any this week, right? I fought last week to maintain my composure and not complain, frankly. How ungrateful could I be if I spent the week complaining? And thank God I did have a friend who allowed me to sort of express all my feelings about, as it was all coming down the pike. But the point is, there are weeks like this, and sometimes they are just not convenient. It would have felt a whole lot better if I could have just spent truly the entire day in bed, sleeping, and trying to get my energy back. But that isn't what the universe had planned, right? So I had to take care of myself in some measure, right? I had to figure out how to manage those things. I actually lost a job last week because I could not muster it. And they were like, no problem, but we can't reschedule it. We have to get it done this week. And so if you can't do it, then we have to pass and move to the next person. And I was like, move to the next person. I cannot do it, right? So at the heart of these circumstances where we have work and also when we don't have work, we have to learn how to care for ourselves, keep our composure, keep our balance, and know that things will change. I knew that this week coming up, like I haven't had any work this week. I haven't even had any auditions, and it's Wednesday. And I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful, right? So, what do you do when you don't have work? Muster your thankfulness for whatever your day has brought, and what the day brings is the opportunity to do other things, both for your career and for your life, right? Every part of our lives matters to our career because we are in the business of communicating the human experience. And if all we do is spend our time wondering where our work is going to come from and wondering if we'll ever book something or wondering if that audition was good enough, right? If we're spending our time there, we're not really living. Not really. We're spending our time worrying, you know? Hello. Thank you so much. So that for me is the message, right? And I've said this before, and it bears repeating, because it's such a great thing to hold on to. I think a really great concept to hold on to as creatives and artists, whose work ebbs and flows. That's just the nature of the beast, right? Our work ebbs and flows. I took this writing class, where all of us, classes were quarterly. We all came every quarter. We all got to know each other, but every once in a while, somebody would be missing from a particular quarter, and we'd be worried that meant that they stopped writing, or they weren't engaged, or they disappeared, or something was wrong. And our teacher would say to us, no. They're just out for supplies. They're just out for supplies. right? Which is a poetic way of saying they're out living life and gathering their life experience. Because if you don't have life experience, what do you write about? If you don't have life experience, whatever it is that you write isn't going to ring true because you're making it up, instead of communicating the very real experiences that you've had in life and putting them to the story, right? Well, it's the same with voiceover work. You want to play particular characters, whether they're in video games or animation or even in commercials. You're If you don't have a life that you've led, you're putting something on instead of revealing something, right? And to reveal the human experience is far more effective and more believable and more authentic, right? And that's what we're after here in this creative thing that we do for a living, right? Even when we're reading medical narration, we're teaching something, right? Um, we're communicating the truth about something. We're trying to be helpful to people. There's still a relationship there, right? So, what do you do when you don't have work? Maintain a perspective of gratitude for the life that you have. Engage your life. Do all the things that are on your list that you never get done when you're so busy, right? That can include and ought to include coaching and updating your demos and refreshing your website and taking a workshop. Those kinds of things. Those are all obviously career related. But then what else? Are you learning a new language? I just started Duolingo, Italian. Maybe I'll get to Italy one day. I am planning a garden. I'm planning to plant a garden. I have ordered my tomato seedlings. They should be here the first week of April, and then that's like right around the last frost. So I'm like planning my garden. Where am I going to put that? I don't know how to garden. I don't know how to garden. There's so many things I need to buy at like soil and dirt and compost and stuff to put my stuff in, and I'm like, oh, sweet peas. I would love to plant sweet peas. They're so pretty. Well, do I have enough sun? Like here I am in this process, right, of learning how to plant something and how to grow food, you know? And that is valuable to my career. It's valuable to my life, right? The fuller your life, the happier your career, because your career will be in perspective. The work will be in perspective, right? So let me go and see if y'all have any comments about all that, because I could blather on about it all day long. So, yes, attitude of gratitude, daily mantra. Excellent. Sonia, Polish, that's awesome. Putting in the booth, reveal. Yes, don't put on. That's exactly right, Christy Burns. We are about revealing the human condition, not putting something on superficially over us, right? That we think, is what people want to see, or we think, right? Nope, we're sharing, we're opening and revealing our human experience. Bendiciones, what is that? Saludos llenos de bendiciones. I'm sorry for my very bad accent. Muster your thankfulness. Yes. Yes. Thank you guys. It's very sweet. Pestiferous. Yes, John Gardner. It's such a great word. Yeah. So, I really don't want to belabor all of this, and I know that many of us are looking for the sort of technical response to this question. what to do when you don't have work. It's like we want the answer that will bring us the work, right? It's like, do this and then you'll have work, right? But there's no magic fix there. There isn't. It is a long game of keeping your life in balance, walking forward and toward the goal. And the goal is to work, right? And then however you articulate that larger goal for yourself. But obviously, our goal here is to learn enough and know enough and be good enough and competent enough, competitive enough, to work, right? So there are going to be times when, and it's always the most inconvenient time, when you will have too much work on your plate and it'll be really irritating and frustrating and you wish it would stop. That's what I said to myself last week. I wish it would stop. Who says that in the face of work when we're all so hungry for it? But there are times when we need rest and we need to care for ourselves. And that was my experience last week. It was magnified quite a lot, but that was the message, right? There are times when my health is more important than the work, right? There are times when your health and well-being and your stability, right, is more important than any one particular job, right? And then the other side of that, again, just to reiterate, everything in your life matters to your work, because what you're after is building a full and balanced life that you can reveal and share honestly and authentically when the work is there, when the work is present, right? So take care of all the little things that that you often don't have time for when you have time, right? And it is when we don't have so much work that we have time. So I developed that habit early on, right? Because I like everyone had this sense of panic, like, oh my God, I wonder if I'm ever going to work again. And it's like, well, I better get my website in order. I better update my demo. That'll probably help. Maybe I'll do a mailing, right? That was the thing that we did back in the day before internet. We ordered 1,000 CDs or cassette tapes, and we got the advertising mailing list from our agents, and we actually did a bloody mailing with postage in a package with labels, and that's what we spent our time doing, right? Sending stuff out. And there's something very positive and useful about that, right? Of like extending yourself, right? Putting yourself out there. And if we can just get into the mindset that this too is the work, that too is the work. It's not just the moment when you connect with your client and you hit record, right? All of it is the work, all of it, including planting a garden, right? So I hope that is helpful to you and has, a little bit of meaning there. Because again, I'm kind of all about the long game and all about building a good life for yourself, not just a good career, but a good life. Because your happiness will have a great, great bearing on the kind of career that you have. So I hope that that's helpful. I'm happy to be back with you. I think I'm going to go get some more electrolytes later this week. And, if any of you ever get sick like that, like, oh my gosh, I really can't recommend that more. It's so helpful to really get seriously hydrated, right? And get your electrolyte balance back. So anyway, I thank you for all your well wishes. For recovery and for my birthday, I really, really have felt very, very loved over these last several days. So I hope you all have a really great week, remainder to the week, a great Wednesday, and I will for sure see you next Wednesday. All right. As always, send me a message wherever you can find me, which is pretty much anywhere. All right, everybody. Mwah! God bless, and talk to you soon. Ciao.